saw this coming, from RHOA royalty to a divorce disaster. For years, Porsha Williams and Simon Guobadia sold the world a picture-perfect love story. Lavish vacations, million-dollar homes, designer everything. They made it look effortless. But behind the Instagram highlights and reality TV smiles, cracks were forming. And when they split, it wasn't just a breakup. It was a full-blown explosion that blindsided fans and sent shockwaves through the Bravo universe. And if you thought the divorce was the end of the drama, think again, because that was just the beginning. And real quick, if you like getting the unfiltered side of hip-hop drama, make sure you hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what's next. When the dust from the breakup settled, the courtroom battle began. And this is where things took a dramatic turn. Porsha's secret weapon? A prenuptial agreement that she insisted on before walking down the aisle. At the time, it seemed like just another formality, but when the marriage unraveled, that document became her lifeline. The judge didn't just uphold the prenup, he practically handed Porsha a golden ticket. Under the ruling, she secured $40,000 every single month in spousal support for more than a year. On top of that, she got to stay in their $7 million mansion. And here's the kicker, Simon has to keep paying the mortgage on that sprawling estate until 2027. That's not just winning, that's dominating the post-divorce scoreboard. And the perks didn't stop there. Porsha walked away with one of the couple's crown jewels, a Rolls Royce, and had her legal fees covered in full. For anyone watching from the outside, it looked like she had orchestrated the ultimate power play. Fans were calling it the most impressive prenup victory in reality TV history. But as Porsha celebrated her legal triumph, Simon wasn't smiling. Not even close. For him, this wasn't just about money. It was about pride, reputation, and control. And when someone like Simon feels cornered, you better believe the fight is far from over. Because what he did next would turn the entire situation into an even bigger storm. And it all started with one word: defamation. And when the court battle looked settled, Simon threw a curveball that no one saw coming. Just as people thought the drama had reached its peak, he filed a defamation lawsuit against Porsha, a move that reignited the feud and dragged their dirty laundry back into the spotlight. The reason? A few cryptic Instagram posts that Porsha shared in the middle of the divorce chaos. On the surface, they seemed harmless. Posts about knowing your worth and taking care of yourself. But one message in particular set Simon off, a post tied to #Men'sHealthAwareness, where Porsha hinted at performance struggles in relationships. She didn't name names, but Simon swore the implication was clear, and it was aimed squarely at him. According to his legal team, those posts painted him as less than a man, damaging not just his image, but also his business reputation. He accused her of spreading falsehoods that made him the punchline of social media jokes, and he wasn't about to let that slide. The lawsuit demanded up to $500,000 in damages, and Simon made it clear, this was personal. For Porsha, it was another gut punch. She claimed she never mentioned him and never intended to humiliate anyone. But by then, the fire was out of control. Blogs ran with the story, memes popped up everywhere, and fans were left wondering just how ugly this war could get. But as messy as the defamation drama was, no one expected what came next. Because the next headline wasn't about Instagram, lawyers, or money. It was about ICE showing up at Simon's door. Just when the internet thought it had seen every possible twist in this divorce saga, the story took a sharp left turn that no one could have predicted. Federal agents showed up at Simon's home. Suddenly, the man who was once living the high life on reality TV was now facing immigration authorities and a ticking clock on his time in the US. It turned out Simon's residency status had been under scrutiny for months, and those questions finally caught up with him. According to reports, ICE detained Simon and moved to deport him back to Nigeria. The reason? A tangled mess involving his immigration paperwork and past legal disputes that came roaring back at the worst possible time. The moment news broke, social media exploded. Fans were stunned, critics were ruthless, and the memes practically wrote themselves. For Porsha, though, this wasn't something to laugh about. Despite their bitter feud, she called the situation disheartening, emphasizing that her priority was her family, especially her young daughter, who had already been through more drama than most adults can handle. But behind that public statement, insiders claimed Porsha was still reeling. One source said she never imagined things would spiral this far. And now the headlines weren't just about money or Instagram posts. They were about deportation, detention, and a man who once promised her the world, now being forced out of the country. The stakes had officially gone from financial to deeply personal. And as Simon boarded a flight back to Nigeria, one question lingered. Where does this leave Porsha, emotionally, legally, and in the court of public opinion? The answer came when she finally broke her silence and told her side of the story, and it was nothing like what fans expected. When the news of Simon's detention hit the blogs, Porsha didn't stay silent for long. In her first public response, she called the entire situation disheartening, making it clear that despite everything that had happened between them, this wasn't a moment for celebration. For Porsha, this wasn't about revenge or winning. It was about the emotional toll all of this was taking on her family, especially her 6-year-old daughter. She reminded everyone that, behind the glitz of reality TV and social media headlines, there was a little girl caught in the middle of a storm. Co-parenting was already a challenge, and now with Simon out of the country, it had become an entirely different battle. Porsha said her focus was on protecting her daughter's peace, even as the internet turned their personal tragedy into entertainment. And while some people praised her for taking the high road, others weren't so convinced. Critics accused her of playing the sympathy card while quietly enjoying the legal and financial upper hand. But if you thought that criticism bothered her, think again. Porsha had bigger things on her mind, and she hinted that the real story wasn't what people saw on Instagram or in the tabloids, because behind the calm statements and carefully chosen words, Porsha was fighting her own war, the emotional kind. And what she admitted next would pull back the curtain on just how dark things really got during this split. Porsha didn't sugarcoat it. She called the split a nightmare, not just because of the legal drama, the headlines, or the relentless online chatter, but because of what it did to her personally. In an exclusive interview, she admitted that the divorce shook her to her core. It was like my whole world flipped upside down, she confessed, explaining how the constant stress left her questioning everything: her choices, her trust in people, even her identity as a woman and a mother. For someone who built a brand on confidence and glamour, feeling broken wasn't something she ever imagined. The cameras had captured her at her happiest, laughing, traveling, wearing diamonds that could blind you from across the room. But off camera, she was battling sleepless nights, endless anxiety, and the crushing reality of watching her fairy tale implode in front of millions. And then there was her daughter. That was the part that hit hardest. Porsha spoke about how she tried to shield her little girl from the chaos, how every move she made, every public statement, every post, was calculated to protect her child from the negativity. I wanted her to feel safe, Porsha said, her voice breaking, even when I didn't feel safe myself. Through it all, she realized something. This wasn't just a divorce. It was a defining moment, one that forced her to rebuild not just her life, but her sense of strength. And as painful as it was, that realization became the turning point, because after months of living in survival mode, Porsha finally hit a breakthrough moment, and it changed everything. After months of chaos, courtroom battles, and emotional breakdowns behind closed doors, Porsha finally got what she'd been fighting for: closure. The judge's ruling wasn't just a legal win, it was a lifeline. With the prenup upheld and financial security guaranteed, she could finally take a breath without worrying about the next bombshell waiting to drop. For the first time in what felt like forever, Porsha admitted she could exhale. That word carried weight, because this wasn't just about money or a mansion. It was about reclaiming her peace, her confidence, and her power. She told friends and fans that the relief was like walking out of a dark tunnel and finally seeing sunlight. And she didn't waste that moment. Instead of wallowing in bitterness or firing back at every comment online, Porsha shifted her focus. She poured her energy into her daughter, her businesses, and most importantly, herself. Yoga, therapy, journaling, she did it all. And every step reminded her that she wasn't just surviving this storm. She was coming out stronger than ever. Still, as much as Porsha tried to close this chapter, the whispers didn't stop. Rumors about her next move, speculation about Simon's plans, and the constant curiosity of fans made one thing clear: this story wasn't over. In fact, the next chapter might be even bigger than anyone imagined. With the chaos finally behind her, Porsha turned the page and started building something new, on her own terms. Instead of letting the divorce define her, she used it as fuel. Healing became her #1 priority, and she made that clear to everyone. Meditation mornings, therapy sessions, and time with her daughter replaced the constant drama that once consumed her life. For the first time in years, she was living for herself, not for cameras, headlines, or anyone else's expectations. But make no mistake, Porsha wasn't just retreating into a quiet life. She was plotting her next big move. Behind the scenes, business opportunities were stacking up. From beauty ventures to brand partnerships, companies lined up to work with a woman who had just turned the most public heartbreak into a story of resilience and power. Insiders even started whispering about a possible comeback. And if that happens, fans know it's going to be explosive. She hasn't confirmed anything yet, but one thing is clear. Porsha isn't hiding. She's showing the world that no matter how messy things get, you can take control of your narrative and rise from the ashes. Her Instagram feed is proof. Smiling selfies, bold captions, and not a single sign of the broken woman tabloids tried to paint her as. And that brings us to today, where everyone is asking the same question. After everything she's been through, what's next for Porsha Williams? After everything, the lawsuits, the deportation drama, the media firestorm, one question lingers. Has Porsha come out stronger? Or is there a mark this whirlwind will never erase? On the surface, she's unshakable. Her confidence is back. Her finances are secure. And she's showing the world a version of herself that's both powerful and poised. She's a mother, a businesswoman, and a reality TV star who's proven she can survive anything. But underneath that polished exterior, the story is far more complex. Divorce on this scale leaves scars that no legal victory can erase. Emotional residue that follows you into every new relationship, every business deal, every public appearance. Even as she smiles for the cameras, fans wonder about the quiet moments, sleepless nights, the lingering tension of co-parenting from opposite continents, and the weight of watching someone who once vowed forever suddenly disappear from your life in such dramatic fashion. And yet, perhaps that's the paradox of Porsha's journey. The same storm that could have broken her seems to have forged a sharper, more resilient version of herself. She's learned to navigate the trail, legal minefields, and public scrutiny with grace, humor, and a clear-eyed sense of her own worth. So what's next? Will she fully reclaim her place in the limelight, use her platform to redefine her story, and maybe even outshine the drama that once surrounded her? Or will the echoes of this chapter follow her, shaping every decision she makes from here on out? One thing is certain, whether she's stronger or scarred, Porsha Williams has made it unmistakably clear she's not going quietly. And for everyone watching, that story is far from over. Even as Porsha steps into this new chapter, whispers follow her everywhere. Fans and insiders alike are speculating about what her next move on reality TV might look like, and whether her return to RHOA could shake up the show in ways no one expects. Social media is buzzing with theories. Will she use the platform to share her side of the story, or focus solely on her business ventures and personal growth? Public reaction has been intense, with some cheering her resilience and others waiting to see if the drama sparks another wave of headlines. Rumors swirl about potential alliances, on-set tensions, and how her experiences might influence the next season. But Porsha has stayed largely above the fray, letting her actions speak louder than speculation. What's clear is that the narrative isn't fully written yet. Every post, every interview, and every public appearance has the potential to rewrite the story. And with Porsha, you can be sure it won't be dull. The lessons from her past, combined with her determination to protect her family and reclaim her power, set the stage for a future that's as unpredictable as it is compelling. The audience is left with one lingering thought. Whatever comes next, Porsha Williams isn't just surviving, she's shaping the story on her own terms.